Hi, this is Eva for Once Upon a Timeline. Welcome to Midnight Mandela, everybody. So it's been kind of a slow week for Mandelas as far as global ones, but it's just been kind of a weird week as far as just, I don't know, weird stuff. I mean, I wouldn't call them Mandelas, but well, there's been more fox sightings all in the area, and that would be a Mandela for me. We didn't have foxes around here, but what I talked about a couple weeks ago, the first fox sighting, and then there's been like two more foxes. Then there was like a deer in San Marcos. I've never heard of them finding a deer just bopping around, and it was like really close to civilization. It had a big rack on it too, really an interesting looking creature. They got it on video, so it was on Nextdoor. Just weird stuff. Somebody said it nicely, well, not nicely, but on Nextdoor they said also. So I wouldn't say it's nicely, but the rule of law, that's what they kind of called it, has continued to break down. There's been more crime, catalytic converter thefts, hit and run accidents, a lot of that kind of stuff. Just feel like, people are splitting off into their true natures, basically. They're not holding back as much. Just, bad behavior where I'm selling stuff and people are trying to steal other people's items because I'll put the listing up for one person and, custom for Maria, and then John will try to buy it. I mean, that never used to happen. I used to write custom for Maria and everybody would leave it alone and then Maria would get it. And they seemed shocked when I'm like, well, you can't have that because I promised it to Maria. I mean, it's like, I guess they thought I got my money, so what do I care? But I did like promise to this other person. So it's just kind of weird. It's like people even act like I'm weird if I try to keep my promises. So it's been strange. So a lot of beauty in the animal kingdom, but in the human kingdom, not so much. Okay, so what's that black and white picture? You are right, it is a pyramid. I saw some guesses on here on where that pyramid is, but no correct guesses yet. So I was pretty sure. There's pyramids like freaking everywhere now. Um, I'm just waiting for them to show up in like California next, but yeah, this one. So it used to be for me there was just pyramids in Egypt and then like Mexico, South America area, those kind of flat topped ones. That was it. But now then they showed up in China, and then I've had a few other places, but I have not had this location up yet, and it's not California. So if anybody can guess, if not, I'll bring it up in a minute. Yeah, it kind of looks like South America, maybe. And interesting choice for a thumbnail. Frankly, I just didn't have a lot of good thumbnail materials today. Sometimes I have a lot of Mandelas, but none of them have good images, so that was part of the reason why. I'm like, well, I have to have an image of something. So yeah, not China. And it wasn't, all right, it was not in a big USA city. The Egyptians are known for many inventions. Now they invented the tampon. Yeah, I did read about that, Shari. It was made of papyrus. Yeah, I don't know. I saw that. And I'm like, do I want to put that on? I don't know. It kind of just, I don't know. Not that I have better stuff today, but it's not, I guess it's not my favorite subject. The Terra Preta black earth is present across quite a lot of mud flooded buildings. I was just watching somebody else's, one of those YouTubers that does a lot of the Tartaria stuff talking about that. And I didn't know if that was new because I don't really have time to watch all the Tartaria stuff, but I just heard about that like 2 days ago, the Terra Preta. So basically what's the Terra Preta? So they're saying that a lot of old, like kind of ancient ruins things, there's like this layer of black earth on it. And the YouTuber I was watching said they have different excuses for what caused it each time. Like one time they said it's They had some kind of lame name for it. It was they pick a name for something that really means like nothing. It was like a not organic layer, but they had a word like human layer or something. Like it wasn't human layer, but dang it, now I can't remember. Um, Cultural layer. I think they called it a cultural layer. So what, like one layer of black soil is a cultural layer. Well, what, they didn't have culture in the other layers of soil? I mean, it's like the lamest explanation of calling it a cultural layer. Other places, maybe it was a fire, maybe it was this. So it's weird. And I have just in the last 2 weeks maybe started to see a lot of blackened soil images. So I do suspect that that is a new one for the Tartaria world. Sapioid's talking about the big C. Yeah, yeah, 6 times more infectious. Apparently doesn't cause much illness though. So, a lot of people are saying that's a good thing. It spreads around and it'll be like cowpox versus was it smallpox that cowpox fought against? Basically, you get inoculated with a lesser version of a illness, and then you have the antibodies naturally. That could be a good thing. Who knows how the story's going to spin, though? I kind of feel lately like I'm just going to sit back and watch the movie and try not to get too sucked into the drama. Like when a movie gets a little sad or a little scary and you just go, it's just a movie, don't get sucked in. Let's see. Just reading all your stuff. I don't there was a bunch of good things in here. I've got mud fossils was there when Roger at Mud Fossil U started out. Okay, so now Angels Don't Fall, that was pretty much the first I'd heard of any of that. And there was a Mud Flood University, and then there was the Tartaria stuff. But I was watching a show the other day, and they're like saying that Tartaria stuff started many many years ago, and it's like 30% of Russians believe in it, and I don't even know how old it was, but it was like black and white photos old of this old book and stuff, and I'm like, what? So like before my time, this theory has been out, and I don't know what to say about all that. I don't think so. Yeah, so it's not Egyptian. The thumbnail's not Egyptian. Oh, Shari. Yeah, that was weird. Um, Now, Shari's found out now in United Arab Emirates, the weekend is Saturday, Sunday, and a half day on Thursday. Just heard about this change 2 days ago. It will start in January 2022. That's bizarre. Half day on Thursday. I mean, I guess ideally we'll all work less hard and live better, so that's could be a good thing. I do think that as a species we work too many hours. I do think that 40 hours a week is not ideal for mental health. So I do think that we ideally will have more free time and stuff. People say, okay, economics, blah, 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 but, that all can change. Economics can change. It's doable. This building looks like it is being uncovered inside a hill. Yeah, I'm not really exactly sure, and I'll tell you the story on that one in a little bit. Horizontal rainbow images. So I've seen the rainbows that kind of stick out like the stems on a flower bouquet. Is that what you're talking about? Let me just check it out real quick on this horizontal rainbow business. Because that stuff changes often. Oh, that one. Okay, I'm thinking vertical. Vertical. You're talking horizontal. I'm a little out of it today. Okay, yeah, we've had those on. Let me just put vertical in since I was already thinking of that. Interesting, interesting. Okay, so they do have really vertical ones now. Yeah, I don't know why I had that in my head. It's like I can smell them. Yeah, okay. Hmm. So that's pretty much a totally vertical one then. Interesting. So before it was like one that was starting, but it would curve. So I don't know if you remember, but I had an image a while ago, like quite some time ago, that it showed a bunch of rainbows all coming out of different spots, and then I it said, oh, okay. I looked it up, and it was like, well, that's a photoshopped one, and only like two of them are real, and these ones are added in. But then later the story changed, and the photo became all real. So that's something really interesting about this Photoshop story, is it's like something is photoshopped in one timeline, but in another timeline, the exact same image or close is deemed to be not photoshopped and is a real phenomena. And I'm seeing that a lot now, where like St. Elmo's fire, which is the weird glowing like at ship masks and steeples and stuff. That used to just be St. Elmo's fire was like a spooky legend in my old timeline, but now it's a real thing that happens. And so I put a video of St. Elmo's fire up. I didn't personally, but somebody did on one of my one on our Tartaria, which is the subreddit for Tartaria, and a bunch of people immediately said, "Oh, that's CGI." Well, they just assume it's CGI because they think it's impossible. So they see it and go, well, it's impossible, so it has to be CGI. But in fact, they didn't know about St. Elmo's fire being real. And, you'd think everybody born and lived for 15 years or more would know about St. Elmo's fire, but it's very new. And so a lot of people don't know that it exists now. So immediately, oh, that's CGI. Everybody knows that's CGI. I'm like, no, it's a scientific phenomenon now. So people write this stuff off as CGI, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. And sometimes it is here, but it won't be next week. So, yeah, this is more like what I was thinking of here, where they kind of go off sideways. Natural rainbow stock photo, not straight up and down. It looks like these straight up and down ones might, I don't see a lot of them, but it looks like they might be some kind of storm phenomena here. I mean, that sounds stupid because they all are, but you can see how it's on the edge of the rain here. Usually when I see the rainbow, you've got mixed clouds and no rain at that exact moment, and it would be out here. So here it's actually on this edge of this rain. It's still a tiny bit curved, so I'm thinking maybe they're going to say it's like a massive circle one, since these things are now circles. And it just looks vertical because it's so big and we're only seeing a segment of it. But still, yeah, interesting. So yeah, the horizontal ones, we've had those on before. It looks like they're about the same as last time. I'm sure they'll continue to alter, though. Let's see. Sweetheart 11. Yeah, I did try I tried the low histamine diet, but I found that I got very sleepy. So it didn't work out for me. Because histamines are kind of an alerting mechanism, and I guess I needed them, so. But it did help with allergies, but then I was sleepy. I had to do the B vitamins. The B vitamins really fixed a bunch of stuff. Yeah, also the thiamine, especially B, which is B1. I don't know. It seems like need for thiamine is a lot higher lately than in the old timelines. But I feel a ton better. I don't know if it's just me, but I've had a number of people say they feel better supplementing the bees. And I eat tons, well, not tons, but I eat plenty of meat. There's really no excuse for me being low on any B vitamins. Certainly not thiamine. Okay, so what is that pyramid? Let me dig that one out. I wasn't the most organized today. France. Have to dig it out this way. Here we go. Okay, so that was in France, believe it or not. Supposedly they had an ancient pyramid in France, and they have multiple photos of it. It's not disputed. This one's interesting. I don't know if you can quite see, but it looks like there's like a little tripod on the very top with a little, I don't know what, triangle thing like that on there. And I don't know if that was some kind of old electronic thing or what that was added later, but it is interesting. It looks kind of claptrappy up there. So apparently the pyramid wasn't in that good a shape. I'd first noticed it with the absolute classic Mandela effect title that you all know so well. This ancient French pyramid you probably had no idea existed. Yep. Reports suggest it was the oldest pyramid in Europe, built between 4000 and 3500 BC. The pyramid rose to a height of over 50 meters, which would be like 150 feet. It was destroyed more than half a century ago to make way for a highway. Okay, let's see. There are thousands of pyramids spread across the globe. Yes, the most famous pyramids are in Egypt, thought to have been built starting around 4,700 years ago when King I don't know how to pronounce that, Djoser commissioned and envisioned the first step pyramid made of stone. But even before Djoser's majestic Saqqara pyramid complex, ancient civilizations built stunning pyramids. One of the oldest pyramids examples can be traced back to South America, Brazil. Okay, now they're talking about the Brazilian ones, blah, blah, blah. I don't really want to talk about those. Okay, let's talk about the one. Despite its historical and archaeological importance, the pyramid was completely destroyed in 1970 to make way for a highway. It has been reported by the limited sources that make the reference to the structure. So there are multiple reports of this pyramid having existed. So it's just interesting because it doesn't really look like there's much around here. But they had to rip this pyramid down for a freeway, even though they could have just built anywhere else. And since when does France not care about historical sites? I mean, it's kind of, the whole story is a little weird. No official archaeological excavations were performed on the pyramid. So 1970, okay, it was ripped down in 1970. I mean, that makes no sense to me because pyramid loving was already a thing by 1970. Everybody's, the Egyptian pyramids and what lies beneath the stones and all that yam. I mean, do you really think in 1970 France would care so little about their pyramid that they couldn't just build the freeway interchange a little bit over to the side? I mean, that's just weird. Authors of the 20th century, such as Bonaventure Salvetti, Roger Cheneveux, and Henry Broch, as well as images of the pyramid before its destruction, bear testimony of its existence. Yeah, see, in the late 1970s, the pyramid was completely demolished. So, like, that was like almost 1980. There's no way. I just don't see how they demolish an ancient pyramid. I just can't see it. And I mean, it obviously was. It wasn't like a hill that was argued about as being an ancient pyramid. That was obviously a freaking pyramid. So this is just, I mean, the whole story is totally strange. I think this was another one that supposedly in France that has like broken down totally almost, but is still kind of there. That's one. There's another image. Oh, there's another image of that same one. See, there's nothing around here. There's nothing really stopping them from just putting the freeway interchange somewhere else. I think that one might be it. I'm not sure. And there's the freeway interchange they have now. Woohoo. Okay, I think that's the other one. There are in France and other pyramids, of course, less of impressive in size, but they are forgotten, abandoned, and almost destroyed. Okay, so we've got this thing. This like a mound. I wonder if these will improve over time. We've seen that the other pyramids kind of slowly showing up. This is interesting because this one seems to have different bricks here versus here, unlike that one. Pyramids 33 meters tall, built on the assurance of historians in the 1st century during the reign of Emperor Vespasian. La Pyramide de Falcon in 1966-67. So these are some tiny ones now. Okay, so yeah, France. Go figure. I'm waiting for them to have some in California so I can go visit them without spending a lot. I'm thinking, we need some more stuff in Cali here. I'm getting a little bored. I need an off-road adventure. Eva, question, do you do B straight across like B50? I've been doing like the main Bs, like I have a complex one that have them all balanced. And then that includes thiamine, which is B1. And then I also take additional B1. I don't know. There might be something off with my mitochondria or something because I'm doing so much better on the B1 and more than just the RDA. I'm taking a lot more. And so there's some kind of interesting thing going on with Bs. If you take high dose B1 and you have mitochondrial dysfunction, like any of the enzymes aren't quite working, a lot of times it'll make the enzymes more sensitive, and it'll kind of push the activity up to normal levels. It's almost kind of like it smooths the path. You kind of have to research it, and it's pretty complicated, and I don't think I understand it well enough to really explain it. But if you look up like high dose vitamin, like high dose thiamine, there's some interesting info out there. And I'm really not sure if this ever existed before the last few years, but it's now, every time I look into it, there's like more and more things it treats. Like for a while, it just kind of helped like one thing, and then there was like 3 illnesses that helped, and there's like 6 of them now. And then there's a lot of people just taking it for unknown chronic fatigue syndrome, high dose B for Alzheimer's, and there's some interesting research to back this stuff up. So it kind of pushes mitochondrial function. Now, if your mitochondrial function is normal, it does not push it beyond normal function. So you can't like overwork your mitochondrial function. It just like aids it to smooth the path, basically. So that might be a thing. I don't know. I'm just keeping an eye on it. It just seems like in the current timeline, people kind of need to take vitamins now, at least the last 5 years. Have you had the multiple rainbows on the show? Yeah, the ones where there were multiple, like, yeah, it was weird. They weren't full and I've had the double rainbows and the reverse double rainbows, and I think I've had them all. So yeah, I don't know. I'm doing a lot better. I pretty much got to the point like 10 years ago when I had to have magnesium or I would get muscle cramps. And then I got the point where I had to have calcium because I was having like this weird problem in my foot, and it would, where there was an old injury and it was like getting worse, like it had healed, but then it was like unhealing. So I started taking the calcium, and if I don't take that, that starts happening again. So I gotta have calcium. So now I've gotten where I gotta have vitamin B1, apparently. I don't know. So I do take the other Bs. It seems to smooth the path. The other Bs are cofactors for thiamine. So is magnesium, but I already take that. I've got real ghost stories. I can take you to the spot where they filmed the beginning scene of The Hills Have Eyes. Yeah, I don't really, I mean, ghost stories on TV are fake, so they're not really that interesting. If there was a real ghost there, that would be more interesting, but yeah, see, I just don't get why they tore down that late 1970s. People were really getting into that whole pyramid thing then. I mean, that was my era, and France, they have a strong respect for history, so that's just weird. Pyramid in the Netherlands, let's check it out. Pyramid in the So there's like everywhere now. That's why I think we need some in California. Maybe Arizona, on like the west side, I could go there. Okay, we need an ancient pyramid. That looks like a new one. Oh no, it's not new. Built in 1804 by Napoleon's soldiers. By Napoleon's soldiers. Have you ever heard of Napoleon's soldiers building pyramids? Marmont had his soldiers build an earth and turf monument inspired by the Great Pyramid of Giza, which Marmont had seen in 1798. Even the erosion-exposed steppe surface was imitated. Construction lasted 27 days. The pyramid is 36 meters high, so 90 feet high, and surmounted by a 13-meter high wooden obelisk. In 1806, despite protests from Marmont, Louis Bonaparte, the new king of Holland, renamed the hill the Pyramid of Austerlitz and gave the same name to the trading post at the nearby Camp de Bois-en-Ville. Okay, so this looks like... Well, it doesn't look like much now, does it? So what is it, just earthen, I guess? All right, and there's it now. So it looks like it's just dirt, basically. That doesn't mean that it won't develop into something later. Kind of keep an eye on that one, because from afar it looks pretty fancy-pantsy, but then when you get a better view of it, we'll see. Now it looks better in that one than the other one. So, interesting. So is that the current one? So it's still, I think it's still dirt, but it's gotten very well formed compared to the other ones, the other images. So here it looks like total garbage. It looks like a pile. All right, so what are they saying this thing is made out of? Let me just check that. Pyramid of Earth. So it's a pyramid of earth, but they shaped it into blocks shapes, I guess. Restoration. What did they do in the restoration? Further piling was carried out in 2010 to stabilize the mound. The Pyramid of Austerlitz is a model for the larger Lion of Waterloo, the pyramid built by King William as a monument to the Battle of Waterloo, where Napoleon was defeated. The mound marks the spot where his son William II was injured. All right, so apparently it's just dirt, but they squished it into, I mean, like, wouldn't it rain and just lose its square pieces? Square look? That makes me really suspicious that this is going to turn into more than an earthen mound, because they take dirt and they're saying it's dirt, but it looks like bricks or blocks. But they're not saying what they restore. If they're restoring it, they should be restoring it till its original form. So they should not be adding blocks. I mean, maybe some kind of clay, but even if they did that, I mean, that's going to erode. All right, let's see. Lion of Waterloo. Let's check out Lion of Watermill. The immense Butte de Lion, Lion of Waterloo. Large canonical artificial hill located in Wallonia in municipality of Bron. You know what? I'm not saying those because I don't know how to say that. Okay, so anyway, at least we know who built those. 1787 to 1852. Assuming, it seems like a lot to have been built by some soldiers, though. I mean, where did they get all that dirt from? I mean, it's one thing to pile dirt, but it's got to come from somewhere. Let me just look this up. Butte de Lion. Pyramid. Looks like it's pretty big. So would they just scrape all this surrounding land and pile it? I guess they could have done that. All the good topsoil is there. Interesting. We're just going to have to keep an eye on those. I could take 26 vitamins a day if I got wild with it. Yeah, I pretty much just take the ones that seem to actually do anything. Otherwise, I could too, you know, but I have other ones I bought and tried and I don't notice anything. So I just take them like once in a while, rotating. So I figure a little boost here and there, but I don't really feel anything with them. Then I don't really, they're not solving any specific problems. I mean, I do eat decent food too, so. They are destroying things that don't fit their narrative. Well, I mean, that's the narrative, though. The narrative is that they're destroying things that don't fit their narrative. But the Mandela effect narrative, if you want to call it that, is that some of this stuff just showed up out of nowhere. So they couldn't have, what's the explanation for that? I don't trust they're hiding things and that's why we never knew narrative. Because I think that's another narrative to hide the Mandela effect. So many people are like, oh, it was just whitewashed. I think history has changed, but one of the things that's hiding the history, that the history is different now, is they're saying, oh, it was just whitewashed and hidden and the victors wrote the tale. But we can see that the actual monuments and the buildings are like magically changing. So that's not just a matter of historical inaccuracy in the writings. That's actual paranormal changes, you know. So that's why I don't trust the narrative of they hid it all and now we're finding out. I don't think that stuff was here before. The hiding it all, how is this stuff going to show up without everybody freaking out? There's got to be narratives to cover it. So one of the narratives is that it was hidden from you by, you know, the powers that be. That is one of them. Dark Wolf's Den is in. Well, good morning to you too. Hope you're doing well over there in Tennessee, one of the more free states, hopefully. Now that we're talking about pyramids, check out the mysterious singing pillars of Hampi in India. I think we've had some of these on. They've have these, all those musical pillars and stuff in India now. Like all the different stones have different, you can like, a whole musical instrument is on the pillars because each one rings. You know, quite a number of years ago, I had a thing on where I thought that these weird ringing stones were very fishy, that you could go around and hit them with a hammer and they go ding, 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 ding. And I didn't remember those existing. And then there was one site that had those kind of stones. And then next thing you know, there's 3 sites. Then the next thing you know, they tell you that what is that? The famous United Kingdom Stonehenge. They tell us that Stonehenge is made out of these kinds of ringing stones. Now, there's no freaking way that that was made out of ringing stones before. So now there's like all over India, there's these ringing stones. And the storyline of the ringing stones is definitely growing at a very rapid rate. Singing pillars. I think I've had these on. So you can basically just clang and make a whole music on these different, and each one has a different note. 56 pillars produce musical sounds when struck with the finger. Oh, that is a different thing though, because I remember they'd hit it with like a stick or something. But now it's when struck with a finger. This is the first time I'm hearing about the finger. They sound like bells ringing, each main column surrounded by 7 smaller columns, and each of them producing a different sound. In the past, it was said they were played with sandalwood sticks and produced rhythmic sounds. Today, they sing only under the fingers of astonished passers-by. The reason for their creation and use remains a mystery. They hide their fascinating secrets since centuries. Ooh. I don't know, that's just cool. I mean, you wouldn't have to have a mystical reason to have cool singing rocks in your temple. And then hire some talented person to make music. So yeah, I've had those on. And there's a bunch of places now that have those singing pillars. I think I had like 3 places on last time. There's probably more by now. Oh, yes, that was another thing I wanted to bring up. The Bob Dole. A bunch of people are saying they remember Bob Dole having died a few years ago, like maybe 2 years ago. I don't personally remember that. I wouldn't say it didn't happen, but I don't actually remember him dying. I don't really watch that stuff well, though, but a lot of people have said Bob Dole is alive and then dead again, basically. Yeah, reality sliders and Mandela affected. Stonehenge was never made of ringing stones. Nowhere had ringing stones. Yeah, they're everywhere now. The other one is the singing sand dunes. Those were in Death Valley area for me, like 15 years ago. But it was like the only place in California that had singing sand dunes. I looked it up. I was really fascinated with it. But now there's multiple places all around that have the singing sand dunes. So the singing sand dunes, there's like supposedly the grains of sand have a special shape that when you disturb them, they like vibrate and then they make this sound and it sounds like a didgeridoo. So if you shuffle through, it's like playing the didgeridoo. And the bigger the mound of sand, the more it gets didgery. So in that location, I had to walk for about 40 minutes to really get the good sound, where there was like a big pile of sand, and it's fairly tiring because, you know, walking through sand is not that fun. But, well, it's fun until you get really tired. These are the days of our lies. Yeah, but not our lies. It's the days of their lies. But I don't know how to just. I see all that narrative and everything feels like a narrative now. It's just, what narrative are you going to cling to? Or are you just kind of going to let it go? I mean, I don't think you can totally not have a narrative, or it'd be very hard. I mean, I have a narrative that there's timelines and that we shift through them. I mean, who knows if that's right? It's just the best one that kind of, I resonate with more than the others, but I feel like it's still quite incomplete. The narrative that they hid it all from us, and now it's coming out. There's so many, but it just, like, I look at all of them and I'm like, these are just belief systems, basically. And it's kind of hard to live without any of them, but at least recognize that that's what they are. So yeah, Bob Dole. What did he die from anyway? I'm wondering if he'll come back again. I'm really hoping that my favorite car mechanic shows up again in life, because they never took his sign down for his store, from his shop, and I'm like, I keep hoping one of these days I'm going to drive by there and I'll go in and he'll be like in there, and then I'll freak out, but I'll have my mechanic back. So I don't think I covered this, but I may have gotten in Alive Again a few months ago. And weirdly, it took me a while to figure it out. But so here's the story. The one thing is, I don't know the guy, okay, that died and came. I kind of do now. But so I had this neighbor near my work, and I occasionally would talk to him. He seemed like a nice guy. Like if he was out there working and I was walking up to work, I'd talk to him. And one time he just looked really, I don't know, something. And I just didn't know what to say. So I said, oh, you're working hard out here, or something like that, just to kind of shoot the breeze. And he said, he said all sad that his son had died, and he was just working to kind of keep his mind off it. And so that was like, oh, well, that sucks. And somehow we were talking about how he died, and he was real vague about it. And he said it was an accident. And so his son wasn't that old, like in his 20s. So it was, and that was like a little bit before the arm pokes and the big C came out. So when that happened, I kind of thought, well, maybe it was not his, destiny to live through that kind of a thing. So about 3-4 months ago, this younger guy was walking into that neighbor's house and said hi to me like he knew me. And I was like, oh, because I only know the old couple that lived there. And I'm sure that that's all I knew that lived in there. I knew, the old man and his wife. Well, he's not old, but I don't know, he's like, 60 or something. So I knew those two. And so this young guy's all saying, hi, how's it going? And I'm like, oh, so I just went with it. Okay. So I saw him a couple times, and he always talked like I knew him. And then the next thing you know, that the old guy is saying, oh, my son is coming over and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, I thought that guy died. So I'm like, it could be another son, but he just showed up like after multiple years of never seeing him once, and he acts like he knows me. That's what's weird. So I was going to ask about it, but then those guys like moved. They bought, I guess, property in the desert and suddenly like bailed out. So like a month or so after the son shows up, then the son did not move to the desert. I guess he was just he lives around here and he visits. So I don't know what. It's just weird though, because that guy acts like I know him, and it's always possible that you meet someone and forget you meet them. But I am absolutely positive that I only knew 2 people who lived in that house, so or were associated in any way with that house. Oh, I don't know. So he might be alive again. It's not 100%, but. After I was thinking, well, wait a minute, that I thought his son died. And he didn't seem that sad anymore, too. And I'm like, well, it's been a while and he's gotten over it, but. I went hiking in the Swiss mountains and drank from the natural springs. Well, yeah, there's one place in California, I think it is. Was it in California? That we were driving through for some rock hounding thing that everybody would stop there and get water because it was so tasty. Just natural, no chemicals, no garbage. Maybe each Earth has a different section of Mandela affected people, and the version of me on the other Earths is part of the simulation while the real me is here. Yeah, I don't know. It does kind of seem like maybe people with kind of similar timelines might be clustered in kind of similar areas. So like all of California could shift a lot, and maybe the California itself would look kind of similar and not shift as much. And so I'm just thinking that it would be easier for the shifting if that was the case, if we kind of moved to the areas that were going our direction, our same general direction. I don't know if I explained that very well, but so like the whole world could change a lot as long as our chunk of California didn't change too much. So we'd all have to just happen to want to move over to the spots on the Earth that were going to the timelines that were right for us, if that makes any sense. I was listening to a YouTuber and she was saying the system can't support NPCs anymore and they are taking them out of the system. That's why there are work and no workers. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I wondered about that, but if we're moving towards like a more truthful reality, then you would want to have slowly have more just real people in it. So that was another thing I was thinking. It's just that we're moving towards the real reality, less fake. Cause okay, you take out the workers, but the restaurants are still there. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I have kind of noticed that it just feels like maybe so there's less people, and you assume they're work from home or they're staying home because they're afraid of COVID. But then I just kind of wonder if they're just gone. I don't know. Everything just feels different now, and it just feels like they're just not here anymore or something. Maybe that could be like totally my own imagination and paranoia. It could totally be placebo effect. Hot and cold faucet. I remember the hot being on the right and the cold on the left. There's been a lot of flippy floppies with that over time. I do agree. Although not lately, but they're in the 90s for me. It kept switching. Half Moon Bay spring water is free and good. Yeah, when I go up to Quartzsite, Arizona, they don't have a lot of chemicals in their water. You spend some time up there, and they have showers. You can pay like $5 for showers and stuff. Then you come back here, and the water just stinks. You don't realize how bad it is until you're away, but it just reeks of chlorine here. Even just taking a shower, it's stinky. All right, are you talking about the LED pollution making the sky lighter? I that's another narrative I don't believe in. I think that it's just that the sky is lighter. I don't think it's LEDs. I think it's Mandela's. What do y'all think of the Pluto return thing? That America, I don't ask me about astrology. I don't know. There's been some Mandelas in astrology too. There's been astrologists saying, "Wait, this is different than it used to be." So I think astrology got Mandela, but I don't know enough about it to really corroborate. I birthed 2 children. Could I still be an NPE? I think you mean NPC. How do we know? I cut myself and bleed. I have deep, intense emotions, but still, I don't know. I guess it depends on what your definition of an NPC is. So if you look at the Dolores Cannon definition, then they're very temporary. They're just there to populate when you are in the area, but then they're gone after that. So they're not going to like go home, live a whole life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're just temp workers on the earth. So you wouldn't be an NPC if you go home and have a life and have kids and, are conscious, and that would not be an NPC. Those like these people who show up out of nowhere, like kind of by magic. Those, where did they come from? The assumption is that that particular NPC assumption would be that they don't exist here like tomorrow or the next day. Once you leave the area, they disappear back into the ethers, basically. They're just a short temp workers, populate the earth. It's like when there's a play, and you're watching the play and everybody is on the stage doing their thing. But as soon as you go home, those characters don't exist anymore. Now, on this earth, we would have the people still would, but, the guy playing Shakespeare or the guy playing whoever's up on the stage, those characters stop existing. And the creatures who play the characters go back to where they came from. That would be the theory of NPCs. Now, there's another theory of NPCs where people are just consider them kind of like brainwashed matrix creatures that can't really think outside the official narrative. And that's more maybe of a continuum thing, but they still think that they're like, they go home to families and go through the motions of life and like that. So that would be a more conventional explanation for them. Some people have very dead eyes. It's creepy. Yeah. If they were just kind of temp workers, it would make sense. They suck at acting human, or they don't have a ton of consciousness in there, just enough to like do the motions for that, 5 minutes that they populate the earth to make the earth look busy. So that's one thing interesting about the NPC concept, because they say, okay, the Bible says something about like 144,000 people, being chosen or whatever. Maybe those are the real people on the earth, That was too hard for people when they were really understand like non-existent players. Even went in the desert to see stars, but just a handful of them, very dim. Yeah, that same thing happened to me. I can definitely see more, but not nearly what I used to see, even from my house, even way out in the desert. Yesterday I watched Christmas film. The first scene was a view of Central Park in New York with this very big lake. Looks strange, not like before. Yeah, that's been on. Life Matrix had that one on. I agree that I don't remember that big lake. I mean, I remember water, but not like that much. Oh, so that reminds me also, I don't know if have you guys been watching or listening to the Christmas music this year? So in past Christmases, we had some like lyric changes, and there was like the upside down Christmas tree. Everybody's like, what the F? So this year, I don't know how to describe this, but it's almost like worse for me. I can't really put my finger on it though, but it's like maybe half or more of the songs, it's the same songs in general that I remember, but I don't remember whoever sang them. Like, I don't remember that rendition. And a lot of them are oldie. Like, they have that tinny, old 50s music sound. I don't think any of them are modern. The fidelity is not that good like it is nowadays. It's like old school stuff, but yet I've never heard of it before. So, I mean, are they trotting out a bunch of stuff now that I haven't heard of in 20 years? So, like, a lot of them, I'm like, I don't recognize this version of this song at all. And there are very few that I do recognize. So in years past, there would be 99% songs I've heard of before. I like that exact song. I heard it, and then I'd be like, okay, well, this one line sounds different, like it has different words, but the majority of the song was very familiar. The sound of it was familiar. But now it's like half of them I've never heard it before. I mean, it might be Jingle Bells, but it's a version of Jingle Bells I've never heard before by somebody I've never heard sing before with, the musical accompaniment as a version I've never heard before, but yet it's old. So that's what's kind of creepy now. I'm like, what is all this crap? I mean, I don't know, and they're not really to my taste, so that doesn't help either. I don't know. Did you guys notice anything like that? Because hopefully I'm not buffering too much because I don't see your comments. So let me know if you heard that. Check a tree that smells like rotting fish. Tree that smells. So, like, would every possum in the entire universe be clustered around this tree looking for the dead fish? Officials offering bounty can kill invasive tree that smells like rotting fish. Okay, now that is definitely a new plant that I could live without. Invasive. Yeah. Oh, why do I have a feeling that we're going to have more of this in the timeline? Yeesh. Oh, Bradford pear trees bloom during the early spring and amid a strong fishy odor. No, they don't. Bradford pears don't stink like fish. Since when? All right. I've definitely had flowering pears. Can I swear they were Bradfords? I'm not sure I can, but I have never heard of a flowering pear that smelled like rotting fish. I'm pretty sure we had those though. So we had problems with the pears because they would get fire blight, which is like this illness that spreads an uncertain species of tree and kills them. So we stopped trying to plant pears. My mom really liked them, but they were always getting fire blight and we'd have to cut them down. By the 1960s, it became a ubiquitous ornamental tree planted by developers in growing suburbs. Yes, like us. They were everywhere. Okay, so that was the one. I thought it was Bradford. People planted it because of those early white blooms. Yes, that's why we planted them. What they did not realize is that the blooms smell horrible. No, they don't. They don't smell horrible. The smell of a grove of Bradford pear trees in full blossom has been compared to rotting fish. No, that is such a Mandela. I'm sorry, but no. We had Bradford pears in my yard. I have a very good sense of smell. I hung out under them all the time until they got fire blight and had to get cut down. They do not smell like rotting fish. Nobody in the house thought they did. There'd be beautiful white petals freaking everywhere. I've always loved freaking pears, Bradford pears. They're beautiful. So they're a flowering pear, so they don't give actual pears. They give the white flowers. It has a lot of negatives. No, they don't. It was just the fire blight. It was also structurally weak, making unable to support heavy snow or ice loads. Yeah, not a problem in California. That's such baloney. Okay, I'm calling bull crap on that. So what? The fire blight kills them all. We stopped having them, and now the story is that they smell like rotten fish. They don't smell like freaking rotten fish. Well, they didn't. They didn't. Pears. That's a total Mandela. I'm sorry, Brad. I'm writing that down. I know it's a dumb one, but I'm like, we had those. There's even a few left here. Oh, let me think. Actually, I haven't seen those for a few years. Maybe they did get the fire blight. I'm going to have to drive by and see if they're still there. But we do have some pears. At least a couple years ago, there was still some around. Twilight Zone Christmas. Yeah, if it buffers, but at least you get to hear the stuff. Okay, so I'm not crazy. Half the stuff on the radio sounds like alien stuff. All right, I'm glad because I'm like, that's kind of how I felt today. I don't know. It wasn't Mandela's that will, although those pears are pissing me off, but most of these Mandelas aren't really anything that are like mind blowing, but there's just been a bunch of them, you know, little ones. 12 tribes, but in total it's 104. No, are you sure? I thought it was 144,000. You're making it 1,440,000. Fish smelling like roses. I don't know if you're joking or not, frankly. It's very hard to tell anymore. Well, I'm glad that you let me know that Bradford smells, pears stink now, so I won't plant them. But they didn't used to. It was fire blight. I wonder if fire blight is out of the picture now and it's... I mean, the whole story doesn't make any sense. Are you saying that people planted 1 million Bradford pears all over suburbia and nobody knew they smelled like rotten fish? Like, they just kept planting them and nobody had any idea that oh, wow, it turns out they stink. I mean, come on. We weren't that stupid back then. I'm sorry. Okay, flowering pear, fire blight. I'm wondering if fire blight is still an issue. Fire blight. Deadly fire blight in flowering pear trees still a problem. Actually, I'm going to take that one. Fire blight infecting flowering pears in large numbers in Indiana for the third consecutive year. Specialists urging homeowners to check their trees for symptoms. Deadly disease with no cure, wilting shoots, cankers, and blackened leaves. So they called it fire blight because it looked like the branch had been set on fire, the way the leaves kind of died. Gives the disease its name because the trees appeared to be scorched. Huh. So yeah, that's pretty much what nuked most of the California ones. They just stopped planting them because there was fire blight all the time. So they grow up to be about, 8 years old, and then they would get fire blight and you have to cut them down. So it was just too much of a hassle. Go back there and smell the tree. I'm serious. So the problem is you have to smell them when they're blooming. That's when they stink. So they're not... I think that's going to be, maybe around February, March. I'm going to have to check. But there were no smell. They weren't stinky at all. They didn't have a real perfumey smell, but they did not have any stinky smell at all. In fact, I loved them because I love the flowers with the little petals, and then they like rain down in the winds. And so you look out the window and there's this like a snow of petals. It's like the cherry blossoms do that too. I love that stuff. But yeah, it wasn't sneaky at all. Now I'm a little worried. Read Jorge Luis Borges, The Garden of Forking Paths, based on Everett's theory. He believed in infinite series of times and the growing and dizzying network of divergent, convergent, and parallel times. Yeah, that seems like it's kind of the basic quantum theory thing. So that's kind of interesting, though, because I don't think quantum theory was out when he was writing his books, was it? Baloney tree. Yeah. Oh, you reverse fire blight on your oleanders? I didn't know they could get fire blight. Are you sure it was that? Because California has oleanders like everywhere. And I've not seen anything kill those things. I'm the only person who doesn't mind skunk smell. I don't mind it when it's far away. But if that skunk just like sprayed your dog and then your dog comes strolling up, I think you'll mind it because it's a whole different experience. In fact, the skunk, they use a tiny amount of skunk in some of the finer perfumes. But it's the dose that makes the poison on that skunk stuff. Uh-oh. A flatulist? I'm afraid to look because wasn't there like a cartoon that had that? South Park. Yeah. It's South Park. Oh my goodness. It's South Park. A medieval flatulist who lived in 12th century England, Roland the Farter. His given name was George. He was given Hemmingstone Manor in Suffolk. He was given 12 hectares, 30 acres of land in return for his services as a jester for King Henry II. Each year he was obliged to perform unum saltum et stifletum et unum bumbulolum. One jump, which is one jump and whistle and one fart for the king's court at Christmas. How could you have that much like gas in you to do like a whole song? You would not be a healthy person. Okay, so basically South Park now is coming to life. A flatulist. I love the helicopter seeds in Salt Lake City. Change to live chat. Yeah, you guys are going to have to remind me earlier. Yeah, my dog got skunked a few times. It sucked. Yeah, I'll tell you what works best is, unless the timelines have changed it is hydrogen peroxide mixed with baking soda. And you have to mix them on the spot. And a dash of like dishwashing liquid to just make it more sudsy. And you coat your dog with it, but don't get it in the eyes because it stings real bad. Coat the dog completely with that and then rinse it off. And then that'll get a lot of it. And then you can bring him in the house now and then do another treatment, a completely new treatment like in the shower. So like I did my first treatment of the dog outside with a hose. And then I brought him in and did with a nice warm water. If you do that, your dog will be tolerable. It'll have a slight smell, but it's not like gonna kill you. Rainbow obsidian, and has anybody noticed they are sweating more or heating up after they finish exercise more than they were doing it? No, I haven't. I haven't noticed that. Personally. Tomato juice, I wonder if that worked in some timeline, but it doesn't do anything in the last 15 years. There's no science for it. All you have is a stinky dog that's got tomato juice on it. It doesn't do anything. So I'm thinking maybe once upon a time the acid might have been of some use, but skunks have evolved and so has their stink. And now you need hydrogen peroxide and baking soda to get rid of it. So I used to work at Petco, so we had to know how to treat dogs and stuff. And I learned about it there. And then my dog got skunked, and I tried it, and it works. And she got nailed. I did have to throw away her collar. She had a leather collar, and it sunk down in there. And even with the hydrogen peroxide, I could not get the smell out sufficiently, and I pitched that collar. But the fur, yes, it did a good job on the fur. I kept reminding you, but I didn't. Oh, sorry, I didn't see it. So yeah, tomato juice, no good. Doesn't work. Vanishing village in China. Well, There is a bunch. See, you guys have all these weird things. There are no like earth-shattering Mandelas, but all this weird crap has just been showing up. Mysterious vanishing village in China. All right, I'm going to write that one down. You know, I've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes and I've hardly covered any of mine. The Bizarre World of Vanishings. There is the phenomena of whole groups of people or towns that have just sort of evaporated out of existence with no real known reason. You know, I've only heard of that for like ancient cultures like the Maya. Of course, the Maya didn't do that now. And the people of Easter Island, which didn't do that now either. But I haven't heard of any modern examples of that. A whole population could just disappear without a trace. It's a topic I've covered here before. One very curious such account popped up in recent times has to do with a rural village in a remote area of China, which supposedly just blinked out of existence one day to leave stories of strangeness and conspiracies in its wake. Okay, now we're getting real sci-fi. Located in the region of central China is the province of Shanxi, which stretches over blah, 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 blah. It supposedly stood a rural village, much like many others. But it would suddenly begin making the Chinese news and generating buzz on social media in 2010. When the story came out about how this little village one day just completely vanished off the face of the earth. Okay, now that's getting pretty weird. In 1987, it was found that the village had been completely abandoned overnight. Not a soul remaining of the estimated 1,000 people, and every single man, woman, and child, even all of the town's livestock and pets, were simply gone without a trace. No signs of how they had even gotten out of there, and the homes all seems as if they'd been rapidly vacated, with meals set out and belongings left behind. All very mysterious and spooky indeed, but it would be apparently get even weirder still. Reports began to appear claiming that in the village days leading up to the vanishing, there had been numerous sightings of UFOs in the area. Spotted a rotating formation of 8 lights in the sky, hovered for half an hour, caused the clouds to turn black before emitting a bright purple flash and a loud bang, and then flying north to disappear. The area had become infested with snakes shortly before the vanishing for reasons unknown. The government had covered the whole thing up, supposedly labeling it the Night Cat Incident. The Night Cat Incident. Creepy stuff, and that isn't even the end of it. My motion detector light just went up on outside right when I said that. And it is probably my cat that did that. That's why I'm kind of laughing. The Night Cat Incident. There were also reports from locals of the area that not long before the vanishing, there had been roadblocks, I think they mean, and barricades manned by armed soldiers along nearby Shenyang Highway. The area around the village had been crawling with military personnel. Some eyewitnesses purportedly even claimed that they had seen villagers being loaded up into trucks by the soldiers to be whisked away, suggesting they may have been covertly relocated, although why is anyone's guess. In the days after alleged vanishing of the village, there were claimed to have been a large number of military vehicles, tanks, and even missile launchers in the area. The Chinese government has completely and flatly denied the event ever happened, written off the lights as spotlights. Maybe it's just an urban legend. Okay, so it's not really corroborated. We don't know what the name of the village is. We haven't had people step forward. All right, I'm going to go on this click and see what other ones. Mass Vanishings is what it's called. Okay, there was one in northern Canada. Prosperous fishing village. Population of 1,200 to 2,500 people. Somebody, so they got names at least, but this was 1930, so this is tricky. So a fur trapper shows up. And I assume he's going to find the village deserted. Yes, he finds it deserted. He found emaciated sled dogs dead in the snow, frozen solid. So they didn't bring their dogs. Personal items left behind, as well as weapons. Meals on tables, pots that had been left cooking over fires. Okay, so, In November 23, 1930 edition of Toronto Daily Star, it explained that the RCMP would return to confirm what LaBelle had claimed, that the entire village had been just spontaneously disappeared. Eerily, it was later alleged that other nearby villagers reported to the police that there had been numerous sightings of strange lights in the sky. So that's the story of the Inuit village of Lake Anjikuni. Writing it down. Anjikuni. Okay, so that one's like corroborated then. How much really happened and how much has been embellished or even flat out fabricated over time. All right, then there's a bunch more on there. Interesting. Okay, so this mass disappearing thing. I haven't really heard of anything like this before. Not in modern era. So that is interesting. They went to the left sock dryer hell dimension. Or maybe they went to a good dimension, you know? All right. Dark Wolves is in. Let's see what you got. Oh, yeah. Dark Wolf wrote a book. Moon Madness. Originally written in 2015, this book only becomes more and more relevant by the day. There's a story about government cover-ups, vacation to the moon. Anyway, you guys can check it out. The link is on there. Paperback, $12. So yeah, it sounds pretty interesting, actually. If you like sci-fi and that kind of whodunit sci-fi government stuff, which probably a lot of people like. That's kind of pretty mainstream these days. I see people vanish before me in daylight and also an airplane once. Yeah, so, I mean, are they NPCs? You know, I mean, I assume that an alien didn't, like, show up and beam them out of there. But there's definitely been a lot of stories that people have said, like, I saw somebody walking down the street and he turned a corner and then I looked down the corner and there was nobody for, like, 20 blocks. And I've seen stuff like that, too. Not a lot, but enough to make me wonder if that was kind of like an NPC glitch kind of thing. The Dark Wolf's Den Show just looked at this book. Must be interesting. Yeah, because Dark Wolf. Huh, who wrote that book, Dark Wolf? Maybe somebody we know wrote that book. I watch a show about how they discovered that the Mayas went to war and were way more violent than we thought. Seems like a timeline slandering, or maybe in this timeline they were bad. I don't know, it's like everybody's bad in this timeline. It's like, I hope we'll switch back to a better history. Shari, has anybody heard of a young American patriot? Sybil Ludington was just 16 years old when she made a nighttime ride rallying patriot soldiers. Yeah, I never heard of it, but I can't say I'm like an expert on American history. So yeah, Shari brought this one up, I think a while ago, but what, last week, the week before? I don't know. This one, it's kind of like she just kind of was, her job was to run and get help, basically. So I don't know if I would have heard about that, though. Sybil Ludington. Dark Wolf. Let's say me and the author are very close. Yep. The Mayan cities had a water system and looked like poured concrete. Yeah, everything looks like poured concrete now, especially the Sphinx. The other thing is, way back, the aqueducts of Egypt were this big fancy deal because they were the only civilization that had this aqueduct water system. But that's like everywhere now. It's like not even a big whoop at all. But that was what we learned, was that they were special smarty pants because they invented this water system and indoor plumbing. They were like the only ones, the first ones to ever have that. But now it's no big deal at all. I had 3 lights swoop down from the sky on me to the point I actually fully dove into the grass to evade them. Still have no idea what it was, but my reflexes kicked in. Yeah, I don't know. I've not seen anything that close to me. Everything's been like really far. It's right on your notepad of Emmys to switch to live chat. Yeah, I'll have to, when I start the new sheet, I'll have to remember to do that, though. Because it's just like pieces of paper. All right, so maybe we can... All right, so I totally dispute that Bradford pears smell bad. It's totally baloney. All right, let's see. What was this one? Oh, yeah, okay. Well, we had like the Speedy Gonzales gators and all these other things. So I guess there was a few stragglers. And we've got the flying flamingos. So chickens could kind of fly before, but I've never seen one fly this good. So I'm really suspicious about this chicken. Let me get to where he starts flying. So, we've had even pretty wild chickens that run around here, and they hop and they kind of flutter, and they hop and they flutter. That's it. This freaking chicken, he just blasts. He flies like a normal bird, and I'm thinking we might be getting more of this business here. But even the wild chickens, I've never seen them fly. Like the peacocks, they could not fly across a lake before. They were like chickens. They could jump and flap, and they could get up like onto the roof or something. But I had it on like 2 years ago, all these peacocks flying across a lake. They could not do that before. They could not fly across a lake. It looks like chickens are going the same route. This guy basically just flies across this field. So that would be the end of the flight for the average chicken. But this guy, he just keeps on trucking, man. He's going to go, I'm going to start clicking forward because I don't want to get a copyright. But he just keeps going like a normal bird. He's still going. I think he then stopped. Let's see. So he's there now. And he's still going. He just flies like a normal, like, hawk or whatever. He's still going. He's still freaking going. I mean, like, no, that's so wrong. I mean, look at him. He went, if this is a whole lake, he could have just flown right across it. Now the thing is, he didn't even have to fly that. He looks like a normal bird there. Look, and he's even gliding and stuff like a hawk. I mean, that's baloney. Chickens can't do that, but now they can. They can do it. So I cry foul on that one. Chickens. All interesting to see what the hut on the moon is. Yeah, they found this, like, the problem is it's not a very clear picture, but there's like some kind of square shaped object on the moon. Like, it looks like a little, it could be like a little hut or something, but it's so pixelated. That's why I'm like, they took the photo like with a potato or something. So I need to see a better image to really hold my breath on that one. They're always finding stuff in it. You can't even hardly see what it is. Okay, so here's another one. This one was found by, I don't even know how to say this, somebody at Redcon. That user goes by the name of OOX -- underline dash XOO. So, good job. Okay, so the movie Men in Black, apparently there's a part in there where they blast, I think it's like a simulation that they're simulating blasting the North Pole. So what's interesting about this is the first image of like the satellite North Pole, and you can see all this ice. Okay, so you're going to assume that this is the icy part of the North Pole, which currently right now is all there is. There's no land. But what's interesting is after this attack thing hits, then they're going to show the image of the ice all melted and gone and just the land forms. And here's where it gets interesting because, so here's Alaska right here. Now there is ice above Alaska, but there's no land right above Alaska right now. Even Greenland is off over here. So there should be nothing here. There should be no land. I think this is a very good find on a residual, because what happens, I got the sound turned off, is this thing hits and then it goes to here and it shows all this as land. So here's Alaska. What is all this? So this is, they're outlining the landforms here. So this is Russia. This is Alaska. And Canada over here. What's this? I mean, it's Arctica. It's the old landform. It's gone now, but that is very good residue, and it looks about right. I think that they're, Alaska's shape is the new shape. It's not the tiny Alaska that I remember, a much smaller one. And I don't remember Russia being over here, but there's a landmass here basically, and that is not Greenland. So what the bleep is it? Very interesting. So let's see how it goes on. And there's not much more to it because then they just so they're showing weapon impact. So the one thing you can see is that it's not the ice, because the outline is different than the ice outline. So this shows the ice outline. And then once it hits, you have a whole different outline for the land. So you can't say that's the ice there, because it's not. So very good find. Those of us who remember Arctica like to see that. I don't know. It gave me a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's not even accurate. I don't know. A piece of land at Arctica is the right thing. I feel like all the China space stuff is fake. I don't know. It looks like our stuff is fake too. Who just had one on that looks so freaking fake? I've never seen this clip. I'm gonna see if I can find it. It was UAP. That's the title of his. Let's see. Let me see if I can find UAP. I have more than a few that I should have. I think it was on here. Yes, this was it. I just saw this the other day. I forgot about this. UAP has a lot of good stuff on, you can see I didn't finish watching it. Let me see if I can find it. Not that one. I think it was this one. I'm going to kill the sound. Not that one. Might have been that one. Nope. He's basically just showing blowed up things and like how silly they are here. Dang it, I know it was in here somewhere. Wasn't that one? So there's one where like the thing just folds over. Like it's just, it really looks like it's just big balloon. You know, you imagine these rockets being some kind of solid something. Now he's showing the sprites. So we have all this really neat video of sprites and stuff now. And this was one of them. Let me just show that, because actually I don't remember us having good video of sprites. So you can see how the sprites now, they look like they're, that's a leftover exploding something else. Oops. Come on, start the sprites. So yeah, that's what sprites look like now. It doesn't even look like lightning so much as something spilling, and he's saying this is the firmament here, and it's like peeking through the firmament. The thing is, it looks like that. It looks like some kind of weird energy coming through, like some kind of weird firmament. So that's what's really interesting about this. The sprites, that's that upper atmosphere lightning. Here's some more of it. It looks like there's something here, and this is like getting through it. So now he's giving an example of how water could be suspended above the earth. I don't know what that thing is up there, but it's, you know, I don't know what's going on, but was this the one? I don't think that's it. And I'm going to be mad if I can't find it after all that workup. Anyway, this is a particularly one of his better shows where he just shows ridiculous stuff. All right, I think it was just before this one. Darn it. That might have been it there. All right, I'm going to play that clip and see. Yeah, this might be it. That was not it. Okay. There was another one where it literally folds in half. Darn it, now I can't find it. Anyway, you should check this one out. All right, I give up. But somewhere in there's one where the rocket basically just folds over like this. It looks like, it really looks like the air went out of a balloon and it just goes. And I don't see how anything that can be blasted through the upper atmosphere and to handle all that heat could just flop over like that. It's just, it's ridiculous. I hope maybe I can find that later. And that's American, so. Hyperborea. So it's not the shape of Hyperborea, though. So, because Hyperborea has like the 4 land masses with the waterways in between. So for the MIB, the Men in Black thing. As far as I know, there's no weird Hyperborea stuff on Men in Black either. It's supposed to be the Earth. Everybody that's Emmy should check into gang stalking. You know, the reason I don't talk a lot about that is because I do believe personally in you make your own reality. So I don't like to focus too much on the negative, because if you focus on the negative, what do you get more of? The law of attraction. You get what you concentrate on. So I suspect that what we're doing now is we're getting into a situation where it's very, whatever you're thinking and feeling manifests a lot more easily than it used to be. So if you've been a victim all your life and you've gotten in the habit of being a victim, now it's become more self-perpetuating. You've got to break out of that. So if you think everybody's chasing you and attacking you, I think that basically is enough to, in itself, make it happen. These NPCs respond to your energy. So I don't think they pick you. I think you pick you. So I know this is not really popular, and I don't mean to blame the victim. I have totally done this. Once you get out of it, you look back and it's so obvious that how you operate and the energy you put out comes back to you. And I personally believe that's what's going on with gang stalking, is the NPCs or whatever they are, they respond to what you think and believe. And if you think and believe that they will attack you and you feel fear, they're like zombies. They just act accordingly. And I've had a couple times where I felt like they were testing me that way, and I didn't get scared, and then they just backed right off. It's like it's a test, basically. Don't check into gang stalking. It might be contagious. I think if you really believe they are out to get you, then the thing is, if you're really being stalked, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Why wouldn't they just kill you if they hated you so much? The reason is they don't have that power. I don't think they have any power but the power you give them. And the more I learn about reality, the more I think that's the case. And I understand I could be wrong, but I really feel like every lesson I've learned through my life has led in that direction. And I don't believe in bendy spaceships. No, I believe in bendy fake spaceships, but not real ones. So anyways, that's why I don't talk a lot about gang stalking and stuff. I think that the NPCs we've just gotten to where, I'm not saying that those things don't happen, but how and what generates that happening, I think, is not what you assume it is. I mean, I'm not saying that I won't acknowledge that there's a lot of negative stuff in this earth. I just try not to dwell on it, get in that fearful victim mentality. And I'll tell you, I'm an expert at being a victim. I mean, I grew up in a not very good environment, and I got in the habit of being a victim through no fault of my own. I assume that I picked this life, but basically I was trained to think like a victim. And it took me a really long time to work my way out of that. I'm a lot better now. There's times when I slip back, but it's a lot better. And now that I'm out, I look back and I see how I just kept perpetuating it, It's so unconscious when you're doing it too. It is this earth is very freaking tricky. It is so sneaky, and whatever you expect to see, you see, and then when you see it, it corroborates your beliefs. So you're like, I was right, see, it happened, and it just goes around and around. I don't even know how we were expected to figure any of this crap out, because everything corroborates what you think. And so we're seeing that even more now. We're seeing like so many different narratives somehow all existing on top of each other. So we have the narrative that the big C is baloney or mostly baloney. And yes, some people get sick, but not like what they're saying. Then we have this other narrative that the big C is killing everybody and everybody's going to die and it's the world's worst pandemic and blah, 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 blah. And somehow these two narratives like coexist and there's tons of evidence for both of them, you know. So I think that's what we're seeing is like this weird fragmentation of narratives now. So which narrative do you want to live in, you know? Work really hard to empower yourself. Think about how you think of yourself as a victim, if you do. Think about how you just think about your life, you know. I call it, okay, Rainbow Pearl says, I call it victim consciousness. It doesn't mean that people can't be victimized, but having a victim consciousness isn't empowering. You know, and I totally had a victim consciousness for like the large majority of my life. It's been a biatch to change that. It was so ingrained. And so I see how easy it is. I'm totally not judging everybody. And I know that people are going to be mad and say I'm victim blaming. I am not. I think if you believe the old narrative of how things work, then yes, that's victim blaming. But from the narrative that I believe in, it's not. So I guess when you pass judgment, it just depends on your narrative. Somebody said first 7 years of you absorb, after 7 years you project everything. Yeah, it could be something like that. And I've definitely seen, like, I don't know, like these just random strangers kind of tried to heckle me, but I just I don't know. It's just I've gotten finally where I just like I'm not scared of you. I don't know how I got there exactly. I mean, hold on, I just dropped my pen. It's been a process, and some of the parts I don't really understand. Some of the parts you can kind of explain more thinking about your own thoughts and working on your empowerment and all that. But there's a point where I just got way less scared, and I just noticed that the minute I changed my attitude with these people, NPCs, whatever they are, the minute I got the attitude like, hell no, I'm not going to be a victim, this is not going to happen, the minute I set my mind like, no, then their behavior just changed, like boom, they went from menacing to total attitude change. Like, and I technically have nothing that I could attack anybody with. You know, I'm a middle-aged female. I don't look like I can do anything. I do have some martial arts training and stuff, but nobody would ever guess it by looking at me. I look like a total victim, but it was the only thing that would change is my mindset and possibly the look on my face. But yet it was just like this. That's how fast they changed. It actually shocked me because I was ready for like a fight, and then suddenly poof, it was gone. The whole threat just, and that actually brought it home to me how much I project out, you know, and how much power that can have. A lot is your IQ. That's probably helped a lot. Which I kind of feel it's not fair because I kind of was born with that, right? I mean, is it? I don't know. But then there's other ways to figure it out. And there's definitely people who are just very positive that don't necessarily have a high IQ. So maybe there's other ways to figure it out. I don't know. I hope it's not just that, because that's not really, it seems unfair. What if you're just born with an average IQ and some, you know, and when I think about it, I don't think it can just be that, because I know a lot of really high IQ people, but they never figured it out. Maybe you figure it out if you really want to. Maybe that's basically what it is. Maybe the attitude has to be self-improvement. Like, instead of blaming everything on everybody else, you know, you taking responsibility. Maybe that's the ultimate one. Because now I think about it, kind of thinking about this on the fly here. When I took the attitude that I was going to take responsibility and figure it out, like, stuff kind of just showed up to show me. So it might be the attitude is the most important thing. Like, you know, coincidentally, I'm thirsty and I've got no water. Coincidentally, the right thing happened when I was ready to see it. So that might be it. A lot used to be a correct word in my reality. I do remember a lot. I definitely remember. In fact, I have a lot of trouble remembering to put the space in. Every time. I don't know about that one. That one does not look similar to me, but a lot definitely was there. Stop all negative things and project positive. If you can, I mean, realistically, we're humans. We're not going to be all perfect, but the more you can shift, I don't know, they say about learning about yourself is like this onions layers, you peel one onion layer off and you're like, you feel lighter and you see more things, but then there's like another onion layer. So it's like, oh, how many layers are in here, I'm trying to learn to enjoy the process a little bit more because there's a lot of onion layers to go through. Did you know there's an alien race that also had the snake symbol from the show and one of the alien encounters in real life? And some similar things like gang stalking in that show to here and there. No, I'm pretty confused about that whole paragraph, actually. The more relaxed I become, the more aggressive the harassments are. Okay, so I would say shift around and try a different attitude and find the one that works. Because something's relaxed is not the necessarily what, like, so when someone was threatening me, I wasn't relaxed about it. I was more like, no, this is not happening. I will not allow it. I wasn't relaxed though. I don't know. There's probably more than one way to make that work, but you got to find the one that works for you. So if something's not working, try another way. And there's a lot of different ways. So, sending love might work. I don't know. I haven't tried it because I'm one of those nuh-uh people. But, the UAP folding rocket is right at the beginning, the first few seconds. Oh, okay, thanks. 0 to 05. Oh, yeah. Okay, now I remember. This is it folding. Hold on a second. Thanks for finding it. I appreciate that. Come on, go back. See if I can get it all the way back. All right, so here's a rocket. This whole thing is weird though because it really looks like there's like a time-lapse clip thing. Let me make it large. Because it's all white and then it turns all silvery. Now, I don't know if they're saying that it's because this was all icy and then it lost its ice, but you'll see that there's kind of a weird thing here. See, now it turned all silvery and it looks like a balloon. And so, like, what happened to the rest of it? I'm going to play it again. All right, so there you see, it's like folding. It's just folding right here. It's like the helium balloon ran out of helium and it's flopping over. And then it just kind of... So, I mean, does that kind of rocket look like it has the capability to survive blasting through the atmosphere and heating up and burning up and all that? No, it looks like it's just the thinnest sheet metal. So I don't get it. And what's going on with up here? Something just flops off. I mean, just from falling, that shreds. It looks like it has he made a joke that it's a blanket, but how can I mean, there's no explosions here, okay? And all that did was kind of cave over like this. So how can that simple cave over cause all this stuff to just fly off? I mean, it can't be that flimsy for what it's supposed to be doing up there. I'm going to run it again because this is just weird. See, like, what's going on over here? I don't get it. It's just really weird. and then it just collapses, and there's no explosion or anything. So, I mean, like, how is this thing launching and there's like no explosion? Shouldn't there be a bunch of like rocket fuel blasting in there? And like, what even causes it to cave over? I don't even get. It looks like it just ran out of helium, really. I mean, so yeah, I don't know what's going on, but that doesn't look like it could even, you know, I mean, a Zeppelin has more structural integrity than that. So yeah, good find, Sapioid. Gina, IQ is also a false statement like space travel. Yeah, IQ, it's basically just this test that asks certain kind of questions and how good you do on that test compared to other people and how good they do on that test. It generally kind of indicates like more like the intellectual intelligence. It doesn't mean you are any good at social skills, self-motivation, mental health, morals. I know a lot of really smart people who failed miserably in life because they basically have no initiative, they're lazy, whatever, So initiative seems to be like the main skill set that's very important for success. Keep trying, looking for opportunity, that kind of thing, from what I can tell anyway. It was a wire from the top that held onto the tip. That's why it's red. Yeah. So, I mean, again, there's just a lot of evidence in the current timeline that the current rockets they really look like they're just balloons. They don't look anything like the old footage that I used to see like 15 years ago. Have you checked out leaf slugs, sleep slugs, very standard, it has ability to photosynthesize. Yeah, those have been on. 60% Viagra. Something peculiar is happening. I have two computers open in front of me and they are not in sync. One is behind for a couple of seconds. I don't know on that one. Maybe the computer techie peoples can help out on that one. I mean, there is a little bit of a delay. I don't know why it would be off by a few seconds, but all right. So I've actually done almost none of my Mandelas, and it's 2 hours. Okay, but you guys had a lot of Mandela. Okay, so there was a lot of like PG not so 13 Mandelas. So I might as well just dig into it. I'm going to try to keep this as PG as I can, considering it's not a PG subject. So apparently when you hang people and they're men, they can have a certain part get hard that is not what you'd expect from a dying person. You'd think you'd be like choking to death would not put you in the mood. So I've never heard of this, but now it's a thing. So some are saying it's because a pressure is put on the cerebellum created by the noose. Spinal cord injuries are known to be associated with priapism. Okay, so that's the problem. Too much Viagra. So let's just call it priapism hopefully I'm saying that right. Spinal cord injuries are known to be associated with priapism. I have not heard of spinal cord injuries being associated with priapism, but I guess now they are. And women too, there's like supposed to be a swelling. So another storyline is that it's from like blood pooling in the lower quadrants. I'm like, okay, I've never heard of pooling blood causing that much of a reaction in those regions. I mean, wouldn't your feet just swell or something? I mean, I don't know. It just seems like baloney to me. Other causes of death may result in these effects, including fatal gunshots to the head, damage to major blood vessels, violent death by poisoning. A postmortem priapism is an indicator that death was likely swift and violent. So I guess all these dead corpses are showing up with priapism, and they're not even hanged, some of them. So, I mean, like, come on. I don't know. I've not heard of this. So there's that one. Okay. And if that wasn't enough, apparently scorpion stings can also cause it. So I found these all separately. Like I was just looking at the like Today I Learned subreddit and stuff like that, and all of this stuff was on here as separate bits. It wasn't like one article I found. That was the other thing. It's like, how much of this subject material is going to show up this week on the same stuff? Okay, so I'll do a quick find so I can find it really fast. You can see I was doing it earlier. Okay. It is observed that, we will call it priapism, may occur after being stung by a scorpion. The pain of a sting from an Arizona bark scorpion has been compared to being struck by a bolt of lightning. Doesn't seem like that would cause priapism, but apparently it does. The venom may affect the sympathetic or parasympathetic systems depending on the species of the scorpion. Okay, then they're saying the venom, prolonged activity of sodium channels results in priapism. There may be nerve damage due to stabilization of voltage-dependent sodium channels in the open conformation. Leads to continuous firing of neurons. Continuous firing of neurons cause overexcitation and prevent the transmission of normal impulses down the axon. Also, they're saying that there's a component in there called VIP, vasoactive intestinal polypeptide, VIP, really, that will cause, this polypeptide is released from nerves in vascular and non-vascular smooth muscles. The compound known, blah, 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 found along the erectile tissues of the corpus callosum. I'm like, the erectile tissue of the corpus callosum? The corpus callosum is part of the brain. Okay, so the way they even said that, the erectile tissue of the brain, okay, I thought the erectile tissue was in the other part of the body, but no, I don't know. Are they saying the part of the brain in charge of the erectile tissue? I don't know. But anyway, VIP is the strongest relaxant of ding-dong smooth muscle structure, resulting in an erection upon envenomation. This is the proposed mechanics for all scorpion of the family Buthidae, whose venom composition contains these compounds. Okay, and I think that's it. Okay, so there's another one that causes that problem. Now, there was one more one somewhere, I think. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. Because there wasn't enough of this subject this week, we have one more new for me, Egyptian god. This guy showed up in a timely fashion, I guess. Egyptian god Min. And he's shown that way. In case you can't see it, I'll scroll it up. This is the image of Min, and this is how, have you ever seen such an image? Dark-skinned fertility god Min is pictured with priapism, and a flail, a golden flail. So what is this, like some kind of S&M god or something? Min's cult began and was centered around Coptos and Akhmim, Panopolis of Upper Egypt. Great festivals are held to celebrate his coming forth with a public procession and presentation of offerings. Linked to Horus, blah, blah, blah. Closely linked with Horus as the deity Min Horus. He was also fused with Amun in the form of Min Amun. I don't know. So have you ever seen that? I mean, okay, whatever. And for some reason he was black, like totally black. So here's another image of the priapism Belmanite shown on left of Min. So yeah, keeping in, at least this week has been consistent. I can give them that. All right, and here's one I have not diligently looked up. I've scribbled it down, and hopefully I can find this. This one's for Dark Wolf's Den. Well, not exactly, but... So apparently wolves and ravens now have this special association where ravens are called wolf birds by various cultures. So apparently they like call over the wolves if they find the carcass so that the wolves will open up the carcass for them. In some cases, it is believed that the raven, not the wolf, will harvest the majority of a large animal carcass. Ravens are seen interacting with wolves, especially pups and yearlings. These intriguing birds have been known to grab sticks and play tug-of-war with wolf puppies, to fly over young wolves with sticks and tease the small canines into jumping up to grab the sticks, and even to boldly pull the tails of wolves to initiate a reaction. Some scientists have theorized that individual ravens may even develop special bonds with individual wolves within a pack. Okay, so there's been some other yammer about the ravens and the wolves, protecting each other and stuff. Oops, I'm losing my screen. I'm going to put in my side screen. It's actually, my screen almost never goes out anymore, but it did now. Okay, so now I won't be looking right at the camera. I'll be looking at my side screen. All right. So we've seen weird animal pairings showing up, and this is just like another one, basically. All right, this one is from Shari. I'm kind of burning through these because I have a lot to do. Okay, where is that? Amelia here. I have a hard time spelling the new spelling of Amelia Earhart without the D. Oops, I forgot to put in the important part. So we had that weird image of the old school scooter, but apparently Amelia Earhart would go on, there's like images of her on the scooter now. So these are old electric scooters and early scooters that we don't really remember existing because we remember the scooter being much more recently. But you can see it's really pretty much the same style way back then as now. So there's Amelia Earhart. Her face has changed quite a bit for me. She looks like a dude now, and I remember her looking like a woman, not like the most feminine of women, but she looks a lot different now, let's just say. In fact, she really looks different to me than even the last time I looked at her. Anyways. So yeah, so there's images of her on a scooter now. All right, I'm going to check and see what you guys are talking about. It's like the simulations run by preteen kids. I know, I know. The name of that god is Min, M-I-N, Min. Dark Wolf says, "Oh, I like this Emmy." I'm assuming you're talking about the Ravens one. There's the Val Raven, mythical creature. I have not heard of a Val Raven. Huh. Val Raven. A supernatural raven. Huh. Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, see, Dark Wolf, you should know all the wolfy behavior. I guess ravens became smart enough to tame their own dogs. I don't know. It seems like it, huh? So what? The birds are getting most of the kill and everything now. The scooter's back in time. She had a boy's face, but it wasn't that much. Min as in minimum. Yeah, min, just M-I-N. Would be nice to find the early Romans or early Egyptians had blimps. So they had Baghdad Battery. I'm not seeing anything. Let's see if Romans. Doesn't look like it's shown up yet. Maybe a few more shifts. Today I learned that ancient Roman scholar Marcus Terentius Varro discovered germs in 36 BCE, saying there are bred certain minute creatures which cannot be seen by the eyes but which float in the air and enter the body through the mouth and nose and cause serious diseases. Huh. Okay, so that whole story of it being later discovered is now, of course, bunk. Sure it is. Blimps and priapism. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's just this week. Everywhere I look, it's like, what? Another one? All right, we got that one. I got that one. Chickens. Oh, actually, I did get some of these done, didn't I? One page down. Okay. This one, I've actually spent a fair lot of time thinking about stuff like this. So you've heard of the tides from the moon on the water, but now they're saying there's the tides from the moon on the like dirt and rock also, and it's called earth tide or pole tide, P-O-L-E tide, or body tide. So you'd think earth tides would be water tides, but no, they're saying that the earth that you are sitting on can shift according to where the moon, and it's not just where the moon is. So in the old days, they'd say when the moon was high, the tide was high. So the moon would be high when the tide would be high when the moon came over. And that's now not like the thing at all. It's all complicated, and there's like a million factors, and it's not high when the moon's high. So the earth tide is the displacement of the solid earth's surface caused by the gravity of the moon and sun. Its main component has meter level amplitude periods of about 12 hours and longer. So it happens like about every 12 hours. Okay, and then they're just talking about a bunch of different factors. Though the gravitational force causing earth tides and ocean tides are the same, the responses are quite different. So this is interesting because from what I can get out of the reading, it sounds like the earth tides don't happen at the same time the ocean tides happen. So like the ocean tides could be low, but the earth tide could be high at the same time, even if they're right near each other. Earth tide is unhindered by thin crust and land masses of the surface on scales that make the rigidity of rock irrelevant. So because it's big, the rigidity of the rock doesn't matter anymore. So they're saying it can go up like 12 inches. I mean, don't you think you'd hear like cracks and there'd be breaking rock or something? I don't know. It just seems really weird. Ocean tides are the consequence of resonance of the same driving forces with water movement periods and blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's super complicated. You have to have like a 180 IQ to understand this or just study it really long. So here it says the ocean tide is quite out of step with earth tide. And then they're talking about when the water recedes because of the ocean tide, then the land springs up because of the less weight on it, and then that will like contribute to the earth changes also. So when the tide is high and the water is on the land, then the land would fall. At low tide, there's a deficit of water and the ground rises. So now how are they going to really factor in all this stuff when they're trying to figure out things like seismic activity? So the land is like moving like 12 inches and they've got to, but then it's factored by all these factors, and then the tides of the water, which they can't totally perfectly predict. And it seems like it'd be impossible to really predict this stuff. All right, so here's all these factors, which I don't even know what the heck they are. Principal tide constituents. These are all factors. One is the sun, the moon. I don't know. Nobody's... Don't even ask me to explain all that stuff. The other thing that really confuses me about this whole thing, and when I look back on it, I've been suspicious about this for years, but I remember many years ago, one time when I was camping out for rock hunting, and we were all kind of bored at the campsite at night, and there was a beautiful full moon out, or I think it was like almost full, and one guy had brought his giant telescope, and he plunked it down on the desert, and he trained it on the moon, and we got a really beautiful view of the moon. But one thing I remember looking back is although the moon would track through the sky and you would sometimes have to move the telescope a smidgen to put it back into the center, that moon was rock still. I mean, like it was solid. It didn't move at all in the lens of the telescope other than its supposed orbital, whatever the hell, motion, very smoothly tracking along. There was no jiggles at all. And when I think back on this, I think it's really weird because they say that there's, minor like movements in the earth due to seismic activity, and then they say that, and they used to say that the plates floated on a molten core, so this should be floating. So my point is that if the moon is really a gajillion miles away, and if you've ever noticed that when something's far away, if you shift, just like if you've got a binoculars and you shift a half inch, then whatever you're looking at far away in your binoculars, now you can't see it anymore. Just a half inch from that distance to the end of the binoculars is enough to totally make it, if you jiggle it like a millimeter back and forth, the whole view in your binoculars is wild, okay? So yet I'm sitting on Earth with my binoculars, with our telescope looking at the moon, which is a gajillion miles away, and that thing does not jiggle even a smidgen. Now, I am aware that the current storyline is atmospheric anomalies may make it waver, but when we were watching it back then, before the narrative of the atmospheric anomalies, it did not move, not even one smidgen, other than the very smooth arc across. And even now, with the official narrative of a little bit of jiggles, that is such a tiny amount. It's even if you moved like 1 millimeter here, that whole view should be totally just swinging in and out of view, the whole moon, because it would be so, the further away it gets, a tiny movement of here is so amplified that even the tiniest wind or something really should make it so we cannot see the moon if it is really that far away. Just the tiniest vibrations of us walking on the earth would probably be enough to make us not be able to see the moon. So I don't see how things I did in the past are even possible. And now you're saying that the earth is like trampolining up and down, like the earth we're sitting on is trampolining up and down by like 12 inches. And yet that moon is not moving other than its natural arc. It's not possible. I'm sorry. I don't think it's possible that we could be on a molten core, swinging through the space at a gajillion miles an hour, the moon that far. And, they say that the earth wobbles in its orbit. So there's another thing. There's way too many factors for us not to be moving a millimeter up and down while we're standing there. It's impossible. So the storyline never made sense. Now, if it's a simulation, if this reality is a sim, then it could be doable. Realizing the moon isn't a floating rock in space should be a good starting point. So, yeah, it could be that it's just not, or this is just a simulation, and you guys know I favor the simulation hypothesis. Springy rocks, what's next? Yeah, it's also a lie from the scientific community. Okay, so if they're lying, why did they change to these new lies? That's the thing. They never said that before. The moon doesn't have an effect on seawater, but on reality itself. Space agencies are giving this people CGI cartoons. Yeah, all of the images we get are like CGI and Photoshop and stuff. But you can plop your telescope down and you can see some of this crap. So there's something, affecting your own telescope out there, whatever it is. So anyway, earth tides, never heard of them. I've covered it before, but I remember the moon. We used to see it in school. The moon would come over, it would pull the water up, and there would be like a sympathetic one on the opposite side, so they'd have tide on the other side. That was it. Now it's all crazy. I give up. Okay. Uh-oh. There should be one more that I don't see me having written down. Okay. I think I've covered this one before, but there's like a new spin to it, so I'm going to go over it again. Because we haven't had enough schlongs. So there's a contagious cancer. I've covered before that they're the first, for me, the first one ever showed up in Tasmanian devils. They said there was this weird contagious cancer. I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago. Oh, the Tasmanian devils are probably going to go extinct. Of course they didn't. I'm like, that's the weirdest thing ever, a contagious cancer. Because I always thought, well, wouldn't the body just reject that foreign DNA? Okay, so they made a big thing that that was the first ever known really weird contagious cancer. They weren't even 100% sure, you know, how it was possible, etc. But now there's always been, or there has been for hundreds of years, a dog contagious cancer, a canine one. A type of tumor that can pass between dogs is showing researchers how cancer cells evolve. So there's this dog contagious cancer that is like a venereal disease. And so it tends to spread in populations of dogs that are like strays, because I guess they are left to do their thing too much or something. I've never heard of this ever existing, and I've had dogs for many decades. Along with dogs, Tasmanian devils, also Syrian hamsters, some kinds of marine bivalves, all can host tumors that can move between hosts like cancerous parasite. So the storyline now is that a dog long ago got cancer and somehow it was contagious, and that dog spread its cancerous DNA across the entire world. And so now like every place in the world has, the dogs have this. I'm like, how did they, I don't know. I don't know, but was it like hundreds of years ago? I can't remember now. Oh, yeah. They tracked the tumor cell's appearance between 4,000 and 8,000 years ago in Central or Northern Asia. Matched up with the proliferation of maritime trade between Europe and the Americas. They even had an image of what they thought the dog looked like on one of these, and it was just your basic... they said, because they took the DNA from this tumor, and they said this DNA came from a dog, and they can look at the DNA and see the characteristics of the dog's morphology. And so it was your basic medium-sized, medium-build, pointy-eared dog, basically. Oops, that's not what we want. So here's the thing. Okay, so not only is there contagious cancers all over the place, but there's one place there is not a contagious cancer. And I don't think you would think this on your own. Hopefully I spelled that right. All right, here it is. The one place that they were not able to find the contagious cancer was Chernobyl. So this is a big fat Mandela, because I remember them saying it would take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years before Chernobyl would ever have low enough radiation that anybody could move back and blah, blah, blah. But now most of the radiation has died away and people are moving back. And so what, 32 years later, and the radiation is mostly gone already. But one thing they found was all these animals all thriving is the current story. And they were not able to find this cancer in the dogs that were left behind there. So it's everywhere but at Chernobyl dogs. And so the story is there's all these stray dogs that were left behind, and they're somehow surviving, resembling German shepherds, fed by visitors, hunted by wolves, blah, blah, blah. But they're still doing okay. And they don't have the contagious cancer. So they're like, oh, is it because they got treated by the Chernobyl radiation? I mean, it sounds ridiculous. I don't know. I mean, like the one place where you would expect cancer and they don't have cancer. So I don't know where we're going with ridiculous stories. I feel like these stories are made up by like 5-year-olds, like everything is like backwards land or something. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention on that Earth tide, let me see if I can find it down here. They're using that as the reason why things like the moon become locked in their orbits in certain ways, too. CERN and SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory, the very large particle accelerators, was designed while taking terrestrial tides into account for proper operation. Among the effects that need to be taken into account are circumference deformation for circular accelerators and also particle beam energy. Okay, so here it is. Both tides in planets and moons, as well as, so they're saying like there's these Earth tides and like our moon and all these other non-water planets play a key role in long-term dynamics of planetary systems. For example, it is due to body tides, same thing as Earth tides, in the moon that it is captured into the 1-1 spin orbit resonance and is always showing us one side. So now that they're saying that the reason it's locked with one side facing us is because of spin orbit resonance due to body tides. Owing to the body tides in it, Mercury is trapped in the 3-2 spin orbit resonance with the sun. For the same reason, it is believed that many of the exoplanets are captured in high spin orbit resonances with their host stars due to body tides. Don't even ask me to explain how, but I mean, I've never even heard of body tides, but now they're saying that they're the reason for the orbits. Seems a bit much, if you ask me. All right. What do we got left? I think I'm almost done. Chernobyl's. All right, I only have one left. Got that one. All right, this one is a real mild one. Looks like somebody was stirring up some trouble. I'll check into it later. Many animals living fine there now. Yep. Maybe it'll end up like in the comics and radiation will suddenly be good for you. I am starting to be very suspicious. I did have a thing on there a while ago where they, in certain circumstances, they were saying certain radiation might be good for you. And I don't know. It just seems like everything is getting flipped on its ear. So why not that too? Sounds like a bunch of made up nonsense. I know. It all sounds like baloney. I mean, I know it. And that's kind of been this week. There are not a lot of earth shattering Mandelas, but a lot of it's like, what? This is just a bunch of more, this all sounds so stupid. Okay, so one more. So a new monkey creature new for me, is these guys. So they have this weird coloration where they have like a black face, but these side colors. I've not heard of this thing. It's called black crested gibbon. But the interesting thing is the females have a completely different color pattern. They're like almost like opposites. So they still have the black crest, but they're like gold. So that's a female black crested gibbon it's a whole nother color. So I'm actually have not seen like this much color variation in monkeys before. You kind of used to seeing it in birds, but it's just kind of a different thing. So birds, the males would be brighter, but here the female is really kind of brighter with the gold. So yeah, I haven't seen these guys before. Black crested gibbons. You can see they've kind of got a really expressive face too. They kind of, I don't know, why is it all these animals just have, they have faces that look like something to humans, basically. They, you know, look at how long the arms are on that thing. Is that for real? Jeez. It seems these arms have gotten a lot longer than I remember. Look at the arms on this one. I mean, they had long arms before, but man, they're starting to look like something out of a horror movie. See, there's a female with I think a young male. So I guess they've got big boobs now too. What do you know? Oh, this timeline. What you gonna do? Anyway, I think I'm about done. You know, the one thing about the Rona, this big C, is they've really laid off on, knock on wood, they seem like they've laid off on harassing me over every little tiny photo I put up, because they're so busy trying to bust everybody for talking about the sea and Fauci and everybody that they've laid off on this. Oh my God, you showed a ding dong or something. If radiation suddenly becomes beneficial, then the electronic radiation all around us might become beneficial. You know, I think it's going to depend on the radiation. And it might be that certain radiations are good and unnatural ones aren't. I really wonder how much in our atmosphere the moon has gotten. Yeah, well, I mean, it seems like they're making the story that the atmosphere expands out past the moon, but that's pretty freaking sneaky way of saying the moon is in the atmosphere, isn't it? Now that you mention that. It's like they want to say it, but they didn't say it. It's like, I'm continually amazed at how these Mandelas are able to make a complete opposite thing sound plausible or almost plausible, especially if you're not thinking about it too hard. Like, you know, the Easter Island statues were a bald head, and suddenly they've managed to change them into a statue with a body with a big fat hairdo. You know, somehow they've done the complete opposite to these things, and almost nobody has noticed besides us. Make sure to check out the new book, Moon Madness. That's Dark Wolf Sten. He put the link up already. I'm waiting for new properties on the moon. Yeah, I know. They're getting a bunch of water and stuff, so we just need a little bit of that oxygen. I'm waiting to see how they're going to pull that one off. So there's been a lot of talk about microbes and stuff. So we've got the pseudo fossils and stuff. So I don't think any of us should be too shocked if they finally get around to saying that, oh, look, we think we found maybe microbes on the moon or something. Yeah, if it gets too crazy, I'll trust you guys to do the wrenches. I can't watch all that stuff, so. And then talk and answer, and you know, I can't do them all. So thank you, appreciate it. But yeah, that's a good point. So they don't want to say the atmosphere, that the moon's in the atmosphere, so they say the atmosphere is further out than we thought. I mean, there's no way they couldn't have figured out where the atmosphere was when they were supposedly on the moon. Nephilim look like clowns, and during DMT trips they try to distract or block you. So Nephilim, what do they supposedly look like? Nephilim appearance. I don't remember them looking like clowns. Okay, see, all right, from what I know about, you're talking about like the machine elves and stuff. So the DMT trip people, DMT is like a drug that basically it's a psychedelic. Man, I'm getting tired. Psychedelic, but it's a really strong one. So basically, you see weird stuff. All right, how come it's not clicking on that? All right, one thing I'm not getting is them looking like clowns. I don't remember anything in the Bible about they were giants. Okay, so the things that people say they see, one thing neat about DMT or weird or whatever you want to call it is that people have like certain things that a lot of people see repeatedly. So it's almost like there's a landscape that people will visit or something. And one of the things that they often see is something that one famous researcher called machine elves. Basically, they're like elf-like or sprite-like. They're usually small and kind of jokestery, trickster types, but they're usually really happy-go-lucky, friendly types. Creature, and they seem to be like very much into like art and creation and stuff like that. But there tend to be people sometimes call it the circus because there's like a circus like atmosphere of like goofiness and silliness and dancing around and like that. But they're usually depicted as small. Sometimes people see them as wearing like little elf costumes, but usually not clown like. I mean, they're usually small. They're not like giant clowns. So I don't really feel like they really match the definition of the Nephilim. It's more of the behavior and energy of them that they're called machine elves. But the Nephilim are not in any way depicted as that kind of attitude. So they're giants. They were powerful, mighty men of old, blah, blah, blah. Angelic energies. So it doesn't really, and I don't think that they're ever pictured as like dancing around like goofy elves either. So I really don't feel like the Nephilim are likely to be the DMT machine elves. The whole energy is different from what I can see, unless the Bible's off. But if the Bible's off, then how do we even know anything about the Nephilim or if they exist? So that's another can of worms. I do know something about the psychedelics. I don't know much about any of the other ones. The jesters, I don't know, if you go on like the subreddit DMT, they pretty much roll the jesters in with the machine elves. So it seems like the drug trips are kind of a lot like lucid dreams or any other astral travel, is that you encounter stuff and your brain is trying to make sense of it. So it gives you an image because us humans, we like our visual images. That's how we process. But the thing doesn't necessarily look like how the image your brain has come up for you. So everybody who goes out depicts these elves a little bit different. And sometimes they're called like little jesters. But they're usually tiny. I've never heard of anybody saying they were big. So one person will say, like, Terence McKenna called them self-dribbling psychedelic basketball or machine elves type of thing. That's how he described them. Like, he just saw them as these weird little goofy elf energy, but he didn't see them looking like elves. So people call it the circus, and it's usually populated by these little worker types. They seem more like they're low level and goofy. And so sometimes they call them the jesters also, but as far as I can tell, they're basically the same thing. So when you say like people see each person who goes sees them a little differently. So I don't think they're really a physical life form like, if you look at my cat and I look at my cat and we both describe about approximately the same kind of a creature, gray, same size, 4 legs, 1 head, 1 long tail. So when people go to the circus for DMT, they don't describe the exact same creature. It's got a very similar energy, size, and kind of basic functionality, but the actual appearance of it is almost never the same between two people. So I don't think it's really a like life form in the sense that humans think of life forms as a physical, solid, consistently looking a certain way thing. I dabbled in LSD a few times in 82, 83. Don't recommend it. Well, that's one of the reasons that psychedelics are usually not that addictive is you don't always have a fun time. You're going to confront a lot of your own crap in there, and some of it isn't going to be that fun. Some people tend to have more fun than others, but it's more of a challenge than it is, like if you took like cocaine or something. I'm not an expert on those, but the ones that are really addictive kind of consistently make you have a release of neurotransmitters that make you feel like super good. And the psychedelics may or may not do that. And they don't do it to the same level, and they don't do it instantaneously. And for most people, they're not that addictive. And you can have a bad trip. You can have a bad experience. So some people do it for a while and then they have a bad experience and they're like, that's it. I'm done. Eva, you should check out the videos regarding the topic done by the channel Conspiracy Are Us. Well, see, the problem with a channel like that, I mean, I could check it out, but they're looking for a conspiracy everywhere. That's their channel. So what I'm just telling you is people go and what they wrote, they saw. And, and so I'm not picking the ones out that might string together a conspiracy narrative. I'm just saying that from all the people I've heard talk about it, they pretty much describe certain things, and it's not really clowns. And usually the higher, more powerful creatures more look like a cartoon a lot of times. They've got this weird head with a triangle on it or something. It really seems to me like people just can't process what they are. So they create something in their mind to sort of look at. It doesn't seem like they're physical like we are, though. The point is many tribes have rituals in which they costume and paint themselves like them. Yeah, the little tiny jester creatures with the little pointy boobah things, those, like the Native Americans, I think had some character like that. Yeah, you could make an argument that those things might be like the machine elves. But the tall clown-looking things, not so much. Now, there is another place on DMT I've heard a little bit about where it's kind of like this black and white checkerboard, taller people thing. I have not heard a ton about that one, though. That one is not a real common place to visit compared to the machine elves. I really just don't feel like I've had, you look at the definitions in the Bible and descriptions of the Nephilim, and then you look at what people find in the DMT world, and they don't match up very well. Maybe that'll change with a couple shifts, though. Psychedelics helps with depression, says a new study. Yeah, and I really feel like this might be kind of some of the new timeline stuff. Back when I did LSD, I loved it. Won't do it again, though. Yeah, I mean, anything can be addictive. People get addicted to the internet, they get addicted to gambling. None of those things are physically addictive, yet people get addicted to them. So it is possible to get addicted to psychedelics, but it is not really common. And I do hear a lot of stories of people that are kind of like they're getting addictive, at least psychologically addictive. It's kind of hard to be totally addicted like cocaine. You can't do it every day because it doesn't work that well if you try to do it that much. You get like tolerance and it just doesn't work and nothing happens. But if you do start doing it more and more, there's a lot of stories of somebody finally just has a really bad trip and that kind of ends it for a lot of people. So yeah, the new research is that there's pretty strong research that psychedelics can help a lot with some of the other drug addictions as well as depression. One that's really interesting is for crystal meth addiction. There's really strong research that ibogaine can help greatly with meth addiction. So like 2 or 3 trips on ibogaine will cure over 50% of meth addicts. And meth is one of those that's very hard to get off of. And another thing that ibogaine will do is it will block the withdrawals of meth. So when you stop taking the meth, because it's physically addictive, there's really bad withdrawal symptoms, and it's very hard for people to get past even just that. But the ibogaine will stop it. You can take a small dose of ibogaine, and the withdrawals are like, boom, they're gone. You stop feeling it. And so that one is very interesting. So ibogaine's, it's not a lightweight drug. It's a little bit like ayahuasca. So it's not necessarily going to be a fun trip. In fact, it may well not be, but it's a lot better than being addicted to meth. So you only have to take it a couple times generally. Even sometimes just once is enough. So, I mean, I don't know if this always worked like this in the past. I'm very curious how this is going to go. So basically right now we have big pharma giving us a bunch of nasty drugs. A lot of the opiate addiction started there. So now we have these other more natural or psychedelic drugs coming up. I think ibogaine is a natural one. Shrooms are natural. LSD is not natural. DMT is natural. You can get it from a frog. That are kind of like nature's alternative to the crap that the big pharma was giving. In some cases will even block addiction to the big pharma stuff. So I find that's very interesting to see if there's going to be like kind of a replacement of big pharma with these drugs kind of at the start of it. I tried opium a few times. I can see how anyone would get addicted. Very euphoric. Yeah. So certain drugs have physical addiction. And so your body actually craves it later. It's kind of like we crave food, right? Except for food has a benefit to your body and opium does not have a benefit. So they call those physically addictive. Also, there's psychological addiction. Like, I think MDMA, I don't think that's physically addicting, but it's just feels really good. And you feel better when you're on it than when you're off. So people just want to take it more and more, but then the strength of it lessens the more you take it. So, you can get addicted to MDMA, but it's usually the drugs that make you just feel good inside, like euphoria and pure pleasure, that become the very addictive ones. So opium is both physically and psychologically addictive. I have not tried any of those. I wouldn't recommend it. It's like Russian roulette. DMT is natural, produced by nearly everything. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing because apparently they're saying now that DMT may be a whole nother neurotransmitter in the brain. New research seems to indicate that. Ibogaine, let me look that one up for you. So I think it's this, ibogaine. Pretty sure that's the spelling. Oh, it's ibogaine. Okay. Ibogaine. Okay, so I was actually talking to someone last month. They had a treatment program that they ran for many years in Mexico. And what they would do is they would get meth addicts here that wanted to get off, and they would take a hit of meth when they're over here so that they would, be comfortable, and then they would drive over the border. We live near the border. It's only like 40 minutes. And they would drive over the border and over to the treatment center, which was not too far from the border. And they would go straight over there. And by the time they went through customs and all that, they would just be starting to get into like withdrawals where they would crave another dose of meth. But they're not giving you meth. Once you go over the border, that's it. No more meth. So they give them a small dose of the ibogaine. And the reason they did the small dose is they wanted to make sure that you weren't going to have any weird reaction or allergic reaction. So they give you a little dose. And they said just a little dose, immediately the withdrawals would stop. And then if there was no bad side effects from the small dose, which is very rare, but it can happen with any medication, then they would go ahead and give them a big whammy dose. And then, send them back home after they recovered from that. And if they had the craving for any more of the meth, they could do one or two more doses, but sometimes just the one dose was it. So once they had the one big dose of ibogaine, then there would be no more cravings. Like the physical addiction was erased by this. So it didn't just stall it, it would actually erase it. So they think that it somehow would reset the neurological system to like baseline, the pre-addiction functionality. And that's what ibogaine does, basically. So that's why it's so good. You don't have to feel the side effects of the withdrawal, which I understand are quite awful. Of course, you got addicted to meth to start with for some reason. So whatever your psychological issues are, it may not be able to totally cure those, and that's why people might be clean for another month and then go back, because people on the streets have a lot more issues than just the meth. A lot of times the issues were how come they got addicted to meth, but for the pure physical issue, and the problems it causes in your brain, ibogaine can pretty much wipe it away. It's not going to make you into a whole nother person, though. You're still going to have to deal with your whatever crap you have besides the addiction. So there's all this research on it, so it's pretty interesting how it alters the addiction genes and blah, blah, blah. We think the first ibogaine flood dose repairs major damage to neuroplasticity, and the second provides the introspective trip. Ibogaine treatment helps us examine our core selves, blah, blah, blah. So, you're still going to have to deal with your crap and that, but it's very interesting seeing this all come down the chute just lately. Capilicious is talking about first burst of DMT person receives is during the fetus stage. During near-death experience, people get a DMT burst. See, it's all very interesting because just 2 years ago I was researching this, and there was at that time they said there was no evidence that DMT existed naturally in humans, and it was just a theory. And now there's all this evidence, and there long has been. So Mandela for Eva. Sugar, one of the most dangerous drugs on the planet. And the one drug I have not been able to purely get off of has got to be sugar. I totally agree with you. I don't get addicted to much, but freaking sugar. The other one that was really nasty for me was Diet Coke. I've tried things in college, like we're talking about now. I could take it or leave it. I'm busy. I'm not doing it. Long periods in between, didn't crave, no signs of addiction whatsoever. But freaking sugar. Oh my gosh, freaking sugar. I got off the Diet Coke addiction. And that was so hard. I mean, like, I don't get addicted to drugs, but I get addicted to Diet Coke and sugar. It's just like, I am a recovering Diet Coke addict. And I know that sounds stupid, but it was very hard for me to stop drinking that crap. Yeah, anyway, I'm kicking out of here in a second. No drugs in the universe can fix your life. No, they can't. But psychedelics are interesting because they kind of show you your problems in a way you haven't thought about them before. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you do that you don't realize you're sabotaging yourself. You know, if you did realize it, you would have fixed it. So the problems that are left are the ones that you haven't figured out how to fix. And that's kind of what psychedelics can do. If you go in with an attitude of wanting to fix yourself and wanting and being ready to learn, it can show you like this one guy told me about how he took shrooms, and the shrooms showed him the perspective of his ex-wife when they used to fight. So when they were married, they would fight. And he just thought, she was unreasonable. Of course, she thought he was unreasonable. Well, when he took magic mushrooms, he saw her perspective. He actually went into her mind and saw it from her view, and how what he said hurt her and how she felt by what he said. He had no conscious understanding of his own part in the disaster that was their marriage until the mushrooms showed him. So they didn't fix his life, but they showed him his own baloney. They showed him his own mistakes in a way that he couldn't understand before. And so he, after that shroom trip, he immediately called his ex and he apologized for his part in the relationship, his screw-ups. Now, he didn't suddenly decide she did nothing wrong, because she did have her contributions, but he understood his side. So it was a thing that for years they couldn't get along. They have a kid together, so they had to try to. But so, it didn't fix his life, but it shows you what you need to do to fix your life, or it can show you if you are willing to learn. But yeah, you'll have to fix it. Now, a lot of the other drugs, they don't do that. Crack. Nobody ever had a soul-searching epiphany on crack or all those. It seems to be unique to psychedelics and only psychedelics. There are a lot of recovering Diet Coke addicts. I believe you, because like a friend of mine's sister, she can't get off the Diet Coke. And she's such a crab when she tries to stop drinking it that her coworkers just bring her Diet Cokes and ask her to drink it because they don't want to deal with her. So there's something going on with that Diet Coke in there. I don't know what it is, but... But yeah, I mean, psychedelics are a different class. And like anything, there's always going to be some people that can get addicted, but it is not the norm for whatever reason. I think it's just not consistently fun enough. It's challenging, and it shows you your crap, and it's like you might be taking them, and then you'll remember last month when you had that argument, you were a big a-hole. And that's not that fun. If you want to learn, then you need to see these things. But you're like, man, I was stupid over here. And, I've been doing it wrong over here. And, it doesn't help you hide from your life that well, at least for a lot of people. It shows you your stupid life, everything that you're doing wrong. It'll show you those things. So, yeah, you can't hide with it. Now, if you take some of those ones that are really addictive, they just wash that all away in a wave of euphoria. So people try to hide from their life that way. Anyways, okay, I think I'm done. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. So thank you all for listening. And you had many, many Mandelas. So I very much appreciate that as usual. Think good thoughts, everybody. This is Eva signing off for Once Upon a Timeline.